Good morning, students. Welcome to the social studies class. Again, we'll continue our economics second chapter, sectors of Indian economy. In the first beginning of the lesson, we saw the various sectors of Indian economy, that is primary, secondary, and tertiary, and how they are classified. Today, we'll read about comparing the three sectors of the Indian economy. Now, the various production activities in the primary, secondary, and tertiary sector produce large amount of things, goods, and services. These three sectors have a large number of people working in them to produce these goods and services. So, to see how much goods and services are produced and how many people are working each sector, we have to compare these sectors. We have to find the differentiation in these sectors. Now, how do we count the various goods and services and we know the total production in each sector? We all know that these three sectors are engaged in different activities. Now, how much goods are produced, how much services are done in each sector? How do we know? How do we count? And how to know the final value of these goods and services? So, with so many thousands of goods and services produced, we might think that this is an impossible task. So, you may be seeing that how to add the values of different things like cars are produced, computers are manufactured, nails, furniture, so many things are made. Now, how to add their values? Because these things require various raw materials, various components to be made. For example, a car is there. Car requires various raw materials to become a final product. So, how do we count the values of these things which are used to make a car? Now, to get around this problem, economists suggest that the value of goods and services should be used rather than adding the actual numbers. Once again, I tell you, the values of goods and services should be added rather than using the actual numbers. One example is given in your book. Let us discuss that example only. For example, if 10,000 kgs of wheat is sold at rupees 8 per kg, the value of wheat will be 80,000. The value of 5,000 coconuts at rupees 10 per coconut will be 50,000. Similarly, the value of goods and services in these three sectors are calculated and then added up. Now, remember, there is one more precaution should be taken which is very necessary. That is that not every good that is produced and sold need to be counted. Whatever we produce and sell, it is not necessary everything should be added and counted to know the final value. It makes sense only to include the final goods and services. Means we have to count the value of only those goods which are finally we are using them, which finally we are consuming them. Now we will discuss that also how we will make it. To take this, we will take one example of which we have discussed just now. That is, the mill grinds the wheat and sells the flour to a biscuit company of rupees 10 per kg. That is, the farmer is selling the wheat 8 rupees per kg. Now, the wheat flour mill is grinding the wheat and selling the flour to biscuit company at 8 rupees per kg. Here now you see 2 rupees difference per kg. But you should not count all these things. Now, the biscuit company uses the flour and things such as sugar, oil, and so many other things to make 4 packets of biscuits from 1 kg of wheat flour. Now, it sells biscuit in the market to the consumer for rupees 60 per packet. Now biscuits are the final goods. So the value of biscuits should be added, not the value of the wheat which is sold by the farmer, the value of the wheat flour which is sold by the wheat mill. The things which is finally consumed by the consumer, that value must be added. Now, why not only final goods and services counted? Question arises, why are only final goods and services counted? Why not the value of the amount which is received by the farmer or the wheat mill should be added? Why not? Why only the final value of goods and services should be added? Now, this is because we use the various things as a raw material and intermediate goods for the production of final goods and services. That is why we should not count the value of the raw material or intermediate goods. The value of final goods is includes the value of all those things. For example, now the biscuit company purchased the wheat flour from the wheat mill. Now in that, the value of the wheat sold by the farmer, the value of the wheat flour sold by the wheat mill is also added. That is why you should not count separate them, otherwise it will be double counting. That is why, to avoid all these, only the value of the final goods and services must be added. Now, let us know what is GDP. You may knowing very well, GDP is nothing but gross domestic product. The value of final goods and services produced in each sector during a particular year provides the total production of the sector for that year. It may be primary sector, tertiary sector, or the service sector. The value of final goods and services produced in each sector during a particular year provides the total production of the sector for that year. Now, the sum of production in these three sectors gives the value of the gross domestic product in a country. Now, let us define what is GDP finally. GDP is nothing but it is the value of all the final goods and services produced within a country during a particular year. GDP means the value of all the goods, that is final goods and services produced within a country during a particular year. It is GDP. GDP includes all the things, all the resources which are present in the country. That is why it is said that if a country's GDP is increasing or growing, that country is moving towards the development, growth towards the growth. If a country's GDP is high, the development rate, the process of development in the country is high. Now, historical changes in these sectors. Now, what is this? Let us discuss. Students, you might be seeing present various developed countries like European countries, North American countries like Canada and USA, European countries, Germany, England, France, Italy, England, Switzerland, again if you see Japan. These all countries once upon a time were developing country. You can take example of Russia also. But now these are our developed countries. So at the beginning or at the initial stages of their development, that once upon a time when these countries were developing countries, the main sector was agriculture sector. For example, if you take Russia, if you take America, in these countries at the beginning agriculture sector was the main sector. Majority of the people were employed in the agriculture sector, primary sector. You may see during the World War One and Two, Russia was a agriculture country, agriculture economy, but slowly they have transformed themselves from a primary to secondary sector, that is production sector, to the industrial factories. So they brought a change in their sector because primary sector alone cannot or not enough for the development or growth of any country. We need so many implements for primary sector which we get from the secondary sector. That is why we need to develop our secondary sector. Next, to strengthen the primary and secondary sector, we should have a very sound tertiary sector, very good tertiary sector. So, the movement from primary to secondary and secondary to tertiary is nothing but the historical changes in the sector. The countries, see, for example, we say that India is agriculture country. In our country, still around 40 to 50% of people work in the primary sector, agriculture sector. Then also we have shortage of food grains. You may be seeing the prices of food grains are very high. But if you see the example of developed countries like USA, Germany, France, Japan, in this country, the percentage of people working in primary sector is less. It is from 2% to 12% between this. But these countries are the largest producers of certain food grains. For example, if you take USA, in USA only 2 to 4% of people work in the agriculture sector. But they are the largest producers of wheat. They are known as wheat basket of the world. In our country, 40 to 50% people work, but still we are not the self-sufficient in various food grains. The reason is that land holding capacity. The farmers in India, the land holding of farmers in India are reducing day by day because of various reasons like family reason, or we can see the growth of population in our country, whereas the agricultural land is being converted into industrial or housing or infrastructure. But the countries like Canada, USA and all, there the land holding per farmer is around 250 to 300 hectares. Imagine. They all used advanced technology, but in India still we are using primitive technology. Very few states are there, very few rich farmers are there who are using modern technologies. So these all are reasons that still our country is only in the developing stage. In spite of 70 years of freedom, still we are in the stage of developing only. So that's our student for today. We'll continue tomorrow.